Hey everyone, today we're going to take a guided tour of the world right outside your window. Yep, we're looking at your natural neighborhood, from the tiniest puddle to the biggest ocean, and we're going to figure out what exactly makes it all tick.
So let's just jump right in with a little puzzle. What could a huge, sprawling ocean possibly have in common with a tiny little puddle of water? I mean, it seems like nothing, right? But the answer reveals the fundamental rules that govern pretty much all life on Earth. It all comes down to one really powerful idea, the ecosystem.
But before we can really wrap our heads around an ecosystem, we need to zoom out and start with the big picture. And that begins with the word we all think we know, the environment.
And the definition is actually super simple. The environment is, well, it's everything around us, right now. The air you're breathing, the chair you're on, the sounds you can hear, all of that is part of your immediate environment.
And here's the key. We can take everything in our environment and sort it into just two basic categories, the living stuff and the non-living stuff. This simple split is the foundation for understanding how our entire world is put together.
Okay, so let's put on our science hats for a second and give these two components their proper names. We're breaking down the world into two teams, team living versus team non-living.
First up, we've got the biotic component. You know the root bio, it means life. Think biology or biography. So the biotic component is everything that is or, well, was alive. This is all your plants, your animals, fungi, even the tiniest little bacteria.
And on the other side, we have the abiotic component. That A in front of biotic just means not, so not living. These are all the non-living things that are still absolutely crucial for the environment to work, like sunlight, water, soil, and the air itself.
So let's put them side by side. Biotic, these are the living players, plants, animals, microbes. And abiotic, this is the non-living stage they all perform on, the sun, the water, the soil, the air. They seem totally separate, right? But as we're about to see, one really can't exist without the other. And this is where things get really cool. These two parts aren't just sitting next to each other. They're in a constant, dynamic relationship. It's this nonstop interaction that creates what we can think of as a neighborhood of life. You know, there's a whole branch of science that studies this relationship, the connection between the living and the non-living, and it's called ecology. So ecologists are kind of like detectives, figuring out how all these different pieces of the environmental puzzle fit together perfectly. And this interaction brings us right to the heart of our explainer today, the ecosystem. And honestly, the best way to think about an ecosystem is to picture it as a giant, busy neighborhood where everyone and everything depends on each other just to survive.
So, who lives in this neighborhood? Well, first you have the living residents, the biotic factors. You've got your plants, which are the producers. They're basically making the food for everybody. Then you have the animals, the consumers, who eat the plants or other animals. And finally, you have the guys who are often forgotten, the microorganisms, like bacteria and fungi. They're the essential recyclers, the cleanup crew, breaking down all the waste.
And of course, every good neighborhood needs infrastructure, right? That's the job of the abiotic factors. Sunlight is the power plant, providing all the energy. Water is the essential utility service. And the soil and air, they act like the supply lines, delivering nutrients and vital gases to everyone who needs them.
Okay, so we've met the residents, we've seen the infrastructure. Now, how does this neighborhood actually work? Well, it all comes down to three things: energy, interaction, and balance.
At its very core, an ecosystem runs on two main processes. You can think of them like the neighborhood's economy. There's energy flow, which is how power moves through the system, and then there's nutrient cycling, which is how resources get reused so that nothing goes to waste. Let me give you a super simple example of that energy flow in action. It all starts with the sun, the ultimate power source. The sun gives its energy to a plant. Then a grasshopper comes along and eats the plant. Then a frog eats the grasshopper, and finally, a snake eats the frog. See how that works? At each step, that original solar energy is getting passed up the food chain.
And it's way more than just eating. It's all about teamwork. Trees release the oxygen that animals need to breathe. And in return, animals exhale carbon dioxide, which the trees need. It's this perfect partnership that shows the most important rule of the neighborhood: balance. If you take out just one piece of that puzzle, let's say you get rid of the frogs from our food chain, well, the snakes might starve and the grasshoppers could completely take over. The entire system feels the hit.
All right, let's bring all of this home. We've been talking about these neighborhoods, but just how big or small can they be? Let's take a look at the scale. from the absolutely massive to the totally miniature.
And this gets us right back to our opening question. Ecosystems can be gigantic. I'm talking an entire ocean, a vast desert, a sprawling forest. But they can also be tiny. A single pond is an ecosystem. Even that puddle of water we talked about at the beginning, for a little while, it's a miniature ecosystem with its own living and non-living parts working together.
And this is the part that brings this huge, global concept right to your doorstep. Because maybe the most relatable ecosystem of all is just a few steps away. Yep, that's right. Even your own backyard is a fully functioning ecosystem. Seriously, think about it. The birds and the worms, they're the consumers. The grass and the plants are the producers. And the soil and the rain, that's the non-living, abiotic infrastructure. Everything we've been talking about, energy flow, nutrient cycling, that delicate balance, it's all happening right there in your own personal ecosystem.
So, the next time you look outside, I want you to see it differently. Don't just see a lawn, see a neighborhood at work. And now that you know the rules of the game, I'll leave you with this question. In your own backyard's ecosystem, what job does each player have?
तालीम मंजिल यूट्यूब चैनल तालीम मंजिल यूट्यूब चैनल एक तालीमी चैनल है जिसका मकसद तालीम तालीम और सिर्फ तालीम है।